Some of you haven't been here throughout the week, and we began on Monday night by identifying the everlasting gospel, and we identified the everlasting gospel as the work of Christ in producing two classes of worshipers through the introduction of a prophetic testing message. And we went all the way back to Eden. We spent a whole evening dealing with that and showed that that's what Christ accomplished with Adam and Eve and with Cain and Abel. He accomplished it in the Millerite history. And we took time to show that this testing process that the Lord uses to accomplish the everlasting gospel is a three-step testing process. We looked at that in various places. And then the next night, I believe, we began to look at Joel. The prophecy of Joel was fulfilled at Pentecost. In the outpouring of the Spirit, it was fulfilled in the midnight cry during the time period of the Millerites, and it's fulfilled at the end of the world during the latter rain. And in those three histories, we considered the fact that Sister White often refers to those same three histories. In Great Controversy, page 611, when she deals with those three histories, she's emphasizing that the latter rain is being poured out on each of those histories, that the Spirit's being poured out, that there's a work that is accomplished in those three histories. In early writings, page 258 and onward, she deals with those three histories, and she identifies a progressive testing process. She said those that would not receive the testimony of John the Baptist could not be benefited by the teachings of Jesus. In the history of the Millerites, she said those that would not receive the first angel's message couldn't be benefited by the second angel's message, neither could they be benefited by the midnight cry, which was to show them the way into the most holy place. And when in early writings she dealt with our history at the end of the world, she was emphasizing that there was going to come an attack upon the foundations and platform of Adventism, which we identified as the truths represented on this chart. She said some would step off the platform and say that it could be laid more soundly, more firmly, more correctly. And in that passage in early writings, what we were suggesting is that the progressive testing process that at the end of the world that parallels the progressive testing process in the history of the Millerites, that parallels the progressive testing process in the time of the disciples, which is all three a fulfillment of the prophecy of Joel, that our progressive testing process at the end of the world has much to do with the return to the foundations, which of course is Jeremiah 6:16, stand ye in the ways and see and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein. But they said, we will not walk therein. Sister White, the Bible talks about a controversy that comes to Adventism at the end of the world, and we're saying that based upon our studies earlier this week, that this controversy over returning to the foundational truths is part of our progressive testing process that culminates at the third test. And in the third test is where the door closes, and the door closes for Adventism at the Sunday law. So before the Sunday law and Adventism, there's a controversy over returning to the foundational truths. And based upon Joel, it says, awake ye drunkards, for the new wine is cut off from your mouth. And when Peter at Pentecost was confronted by the Pharisees that were telling him, stop these men from speaking in these various languages, Peter said, these men aren't drunk as you suppose, but these men are a fulfillment of Joel. When Joel is fulfilled in the history of Pentecost and the history of the Millerites and our history, there are two classes of worshipers that are manifested. One class is drinking the new wine, the new doctrine of the latter rain, the midnight cry, or the Pentecostal rain, depending which history that you're looking at. And those people that aren't understanding what that latter rain message is, they're portrayed as being drunken. And the drunkards of Ephraim in Isaiah 28 and 29, their drunkenness is identified in Isaiah 28 and 29, that it's manifested in the fact that they do not understand the book that is sealed. Okay, their drunkenness is manifested in their inability to understand God's prophetic word, because Daniel and Revelation are the books that are sealed. So we've been dealing with this everlasting gospel that we're suggesting is accomplished by the introduction of a prophetic message that produces two classes of worshipers. And part of this prophetic testing message is these foundational truths. So Once we got to that level in our studies, then we began to look at just a little bit of these foundational truths. We've been dealing with some of the implications of the 25-20 if you don't accept the 25-20 or if you do accept the 25-20. And then here today, we begin to move into the trumpets, okay? And